Course Plus. Expressway to elegant career.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of My Unfair Advantage. This is going to be a presentation about taking action. And what I did is similar to an open session. I asked the attendees of tonight's webinar what were some pressing questions that they had with regard to taking action. We had an open discussion about what causes people to not take action, what causes people to stop the action that they've been taking, what causes people to take inappropriate action. And we came up with a couple of different questions that I want to address as they have applied to me in my own experience in my own business. Now, I don't want to put myself on a pedestal and say that I am the epitome, the edification basically of taking action. I am an action taker. When I say something, when I say I'm going to do something, I do it, and I keep at it until it's done. And that's how everything I've ever tried, I've actually finished it. And I've got projects right now that I'm still working on that aren't done. And if you were to look at them and you'd say, wow, well, Omar, you're not an action taker. You don't get the stuff. Well, I do. I'm going to continue taking action until it's done, or I will die in the process, and there are some important points for you to keep in front of you, not to keep in the back of your mind, not to think about once, read them, and then just put them away, but rather to keep in the forefront of everything you do with regard to business. And I guess a lot of this stuff sometimes comes off as like cheesy motivational talk, right? Because it doesn't just apply to business, it applies to almost anything, right? Like life in general. And I don't want to come off cheesy, but I want to tell you some things that have made a big difference. And maybe it's not specific answers, but rather ways of thinking that have helped me in my own business. And again, we haven't arrived at any particular place yet in our business. Melinda and I are very proud of the business that we've been able to accomplish. And a lot of people would say that we've succeeded at doing something that a lot of people have failed at. And we continue to succeed on an ongoing basis. And a lot of people want to have what we have. And that's why I want you to keep these important points in front of you. So I asked the audience, well, what are some things that you would consider to be important? What are some questions that you would consider to be important? One of the ones that was asked was, how do you believe in yourself? How do you just believe in yourself? How do you believe that you're going to be successful at something, especially when it's something new, something you've never done before? I'm gonna be as forthcoming as I can be with some of these answers. Some of the things that I say here, they might not sit very well with you because some of them might cause you to face some realities that you've been avoiding. Okay, now look, in a lot of things, there is some talent or some just God-given talent that is required to be incredibly successful. All right. There are some things that are out of your direct control to succeed in some things. I'll give you an example. To be above and beyond the rest in basketball, for example, having the advantage of height, of a body, of a physique that makes you taller than the opponent, gives you a formidable advantage in being successful, right? That is not to say, however, that someone that has of equal age but not equal physical ability can't work their ass off and work harder to become just as good as that guy. But the advantage that that person had to be successful is that they were just naturally taller. They were born taller, so they didn't have to work as hard to be equally as successful. But my point is that, they were both equally successful. So why am I saying this when the question is, how do you believe in yourself? Well, I'm saying this because for some things, people attribute the fact that they just don't have God-given talents. One of the things that pisses me off all the time is when somebody says to me, Omar, yeah, you just have the gift of gab. That's why you're so good at selling. That's why you're so good on video. It upsets me because you know what I say to that? I say, bullshit. No one ever came to my house on Christmas and said, hey, Omar, here's a gift. It's gab. From now on, you'll be able to sell like never before. No, that's bullshit. That's just an excuse that people create to justify why they aren't willing to work hard at achieving what I've been able to achieve. I wasn't born knowing how to sell. My formal education was at medicine. I sucked at talking to people. But I had to learn it, and I learned it, and I strengthened that muscle through repetition. Well, I can't talk today. But it was something that I repeated. I kept working on it. How do I do that? I broke my comfort zone. I got in front of people, even though my stomach was telling me, no, don't knock on that door. I knocked on that door anyway, And I risked failing, I risked ridicule because my why was much greater than my now or my not ables. I don't know if that kind of makes sense. That's just the way that it, makes sense in my head. So how do you believe in yourself to be successful at something new? Identify a very powerful why. A very powerful reason why you want to be successful. Now, some people are going to have greater limitations than others in certain avenues, particularly ones that require physical exertion, physical stress. There are going to be some handicaps. I'm sorry if you don't like that word handicap, but I'm going to use it because it's a word and it applies here. Some people are handicapped at certain things because they, perhaps, for example, if you are a paraplegic, you won't be able to compete in professional sports because there are rules there, because but there's the Special Olympics, there's other things, I don't even know that you can compete in the Special Olympics, but that doesn't mean that you can't be hugely successful at other things. Look at Stephen Hawking, right? You see my point there? Here's a paraplegic that can't even talk, and he is one of the most brilliant minds of our time. So how willing are you to overcome your own challenges in your life? I don't know if anybody here has ever heard of a man named Nick Vujicic. If not, look it up. But here's a guy with no limbs that's affected more lives and affected more change in the world than a lot of people, because it really comes down to your why. And if you don't believe in yourself, then believe in why you need to make a change, and why you need to get good at something, and why you need to practice until you get it right and you'll learn that's something new. What is your why? Look, I've found in my experience that there are 4 motivating factors, the 4 F's that motivate people to take action. Okay? Those 4 F's are fortune, family, fame, and freedom. Fortune, family, fame, and freedom. You might be prone to one of those. You might be prone to 2 of those. Maybe all of them motivate you. Some people are motivated by fortune. They just want to make a lot of money to buy a whole bunch of stuff that maybe they didn't have in the past. Some people are motivated by family. Maybe they just want to prove to someone in their family that they can do it. Maybe they just want to provide something for their family that their family never had. Maybe they're just motivated by their kids and they want to provide a better life for them. Some people are motivated by family. Some people are motivated by fame. They want to see their name up in lights. They want to be at the top of the ladder. They want everybody to be looking at them. That's not a bad thing. To be, to the winner of the race and to accept the trophy and to have everybody want to be like you and to be in a position to be able to help those people and show them what you did to get there. It's not a bad thing. Some people are motivated by fame. Some people are motivated by freedom. They could care less about the fame. They don't really have to prove anything to their family. And they don't necessarily need the money or want the money because they'd be happy without it. But they're motivated by the freedom, by the ability to do whatever the hell they want whenever they want, by the freedom from having to comply with what somebody else says in order to have the things that they want. What motivates you? I think that believing in yourself to succeed comes from, particularly at something new, comes from knowing what motivates you and putting a very vivid why right in front of you. A very vivid why right in front of you. My why, I just wanted to provide a life for my wife that she just couldn't have had otherwise. I wanted freedom, not just for me, but for her as well. I hated the fact that I knew I was smarter than my boss, yet I had to listen to him every day. I hated the fact that when I went to a restaurant, I was reading the menu from right to left and determining what I was going to eat based on how much it cost, instead of, just ordering whatever the hell I wanted to eat. Those were the things that motivated me, freedom. But you might have a different motivation. And again, does this sound cheesy? Does this sound like whatever? Call it whatever you want. These are the things that I had to do in my mind. These are the changes that I had to make in my life to become hugely successful at what I do. Next question that was asked today on the webinar was, what holds us back from taking that action? Right? So Omar, okay, great. I guess I kind of identified what it is that motivates me. I do have a why. I would love to have these things. What is it that holds me back? What is the thing that stops me from taking action? There's one answer to that: complacency. You get comfortable. That's what holds you back. You get comfortable. Have you ever heard the story about the dog on the porch? Well, there's a little boy and he's walking home from school. There's an old man rocking in a chair on a porch, and there's a dog that's sitting next to him, and he's crying. The dog is just crying, and the little boy says, "Hey, old man, the dog is crying." And the old man says, "Yeah, I noticed that." And he says, "Well, why is the dog crying?" The old man says, "Well, there's a nail in the board on the porch, and it's pierced his skin, and it hurts him, and that's why he's crying." And the little boy says, "Well, why doesn't he get up?" And the old man says, "Well, I guess the nail just doesn't hurt bad enough." See, it hurts bad enough to cry, but it doesn't hurt bad enough to get up. My friend Brad Goss said something awesome recently. I often hear my wife saying, Omar, I don't want to go shopping when I'm hungry. I haven't eaten yet because I tend to buy more stuff in the grocery store if I go when I'm hungry. And it makes perfect sense, right? You're hungry. Your brain has a certain, like, oh, I want that, I want that, I want that. And shopping while you're hungry isn't a good idea. Grocery shopping. So maybe you agree, maybe you don't. But for some people, this holds true. And it was funny to hear Brad Goss make the same comparison when it comes to money. Most of us are full. We've got what we need. We've got what we need. We've got just enough to pay our rent. We've got just enough to make the insurance payment. We've got just enough to pay the minimum on our credit card bill. We're not going to be able to pay this one, but we can pay that one next month. And we got just enough to get by. Never quite enough to live comfortably. Never quite enough to live the life of abundance. But we've got just enough to get by. Our nail doesn't hurt bad enough. We're not hungry enough to take all the other actions that we need. We get complacent in where we are. You got to put your back against a wall. What holds you back from taking action? Well, you get complacent. Another thing that holds a lot of people back from taking action, sadly, is fear. Fear of, failure. Fear sometimes of success. Just fear of the unknown. Fear is fear. But here's something important that, a great line, I'm going to steal it right now from Will Smith. Fear isn't real. Fear is something you create. Make no mistake between, don't confuse fear with danger, right? You guys know what movie I'm talking about. Danger is very real. There's always risk. Danger is very real. Fear is not real. Fear is something that you create in your mind in order to justify not taking the risk. So what holds you back? Complacency. I'm comfortable. Why risk that? Why take that risk? What if I fail? You know what? I can just get by the way that I am now. You're never going to break that. You're never going to break that fear and take that action unless you have that strong why, which brings us back to the opening slide. Next question that was asked tonight, a very good one. How do you recognize opportunities that'll make a difference in your business? Okay, so let's say you are an action taker. Let's say you have that why. Let's say, okay, you know what? I'm taking action, man. Omar, I'm with you. I understand that. I'm not one of those people, but I understand where you're coming from. I've made the decision, and there's a big difference between wanting to succeed and making the decision to succeed. Maybe you're watching this right now and you're saying to yourself, you know what, Omar, all right, it's all good. I've made the decision, but now what? Now what, man? How do I know? How do I know what to do? How do I know this opportunity jumped in front of me? How do I know that this is something I need? How do I know it's going to make a difference? How do I know that I should jump on this right now? Well, this is great. And you never know 100%. Look, I don't have all the answers. I'm human just like you, man. And I made a lot of mistakes and wrong choices when I was building my business. I let myself get pulled in different directions. I allowed myself to be distracted. Mostly it was because I failed to have a really solid plan of action. It's not that I didn't want to take action or that I was failing to take the action. It's that I was taking, just action all over the place. I was taking so much action